In the middle of a routine trial, a little girl walks across the courtroom clutching a teddy bear. She accuses the victim's wife of lying and says the whole scheme was her idea all along. The recording hidden inside the toy reveals a shocking plot of greed and sabotage. If this incredible story has you on the edge of your seat, make sure to subscribe to our channel and let us know in the comments what city you're watching from. Now, on with the story. The silence in the courtroom was so thick it seemed to suffocate every breath. The dark wooden benches creaked under the weight of the tension as dozens of eyes fixed on the defendant's table, where Edward Miller sat with his head bowed, his hands trembling slightly on the polished surface. At 52, the businessman who had once commanded boardrooms with an iron fist now looked like a shadow of his former self, his graying hair disheveled and his suit wrinkled, a stark contrast to the elegance he had always flaunted. A few feet away, Patricia Miller maintained an erect posture, her calculated tears streaming down her perfectly made-up face. Dressed in black, she was the picture of a grieving widow, even though Edward was alive, merely broken. Her fingers stroked the fine fabric of her dress as she whispered words of support to her sister beside her, each gesture studied to project the image of a wounded but brave woman. It was at that moment that little Luna rose from the back row of the courtroom. The 7-year-old girl, with her brown hair in 2 uneven pigtails and wearing a simple dress her mother had washed 3 times that week, walked down the center aisle clutching a worn-out teddy bear. Her small steps echoed in the solemn chamber, and every head turned to watch the child who seemed to have lost her way. Carla, her mother, felt her heart race when she realized what her daughter was doing. The 35-year-old cleaning lady, her hands calloused from years of hard work, tried to get up, but her legs trembled. She knew that determined look in Luna's eyes, the same one the girl had whenever she made up her mind about something important. It was the same look she'd had at 5, when she insisted on teaching herself to read, or at 6 when she stood up to a bigger kid who was bullying her at school. The judge, the Honorable Marcus Reynolds, frowned when he saw the child approaching the center of the room. With 60 years on the bench, he had seen it all, but a child interrupting an attempted murder trial was a first even for him. He adjusted his glasses and was about to ask a bailiff to remove the girl when Luna stopped right in the middle of the courtroom. "She's lying," the girl said, her small "ow" said, but clear voice cutting through the silence like a blade. The teddy bear was clutched tightly to her chest, and her dark eyes were fixed directly on Patricia Miller. A murmur rippled through the courtroom. Patricia paled slightly, but maintained her composure. Edward lifted his head for the first time in hours, his confused eyes trying to focus on the child who had just spoken. "What did you say, sweetie?" asked Robert Fields, the district attorney prosecuting the case, crouching down to the girl's level. His 50 years of experience in criminal law had never prepared him for a moment like this. Luna took a deep breath, just as her mother had taught her to do when she was nervous. "He didn't try to hurt himself," she said, pointing to Edward. "It was her," she continued, aiming her finger at Patricia. "She broke his car. I heard her on the phone. She said she was going to get a lot of money when he died." The courtroom erupted in a chorus of shocked voices. Patricia shot to her feet, knocking her purse to the floor and scattering its contents. "This is absurd. A child can't just walk in here and make baseless accusations. She doesn't know what she's saying." But Luna didn't back down. Instead, she held the teddy bear tighter and looked directly at the judge. "I have proof," she said simply. Tears welled up in Carla's eyes. She knew her daughter was special, always an observant child, but she never imagined Luna had witnessed something so terrible. The cleaning lady remembered the nights she worked late at the Miller's house, when Luna would sit quietly in a corner of the kitchen doing her homework, practically invisible to her employers. Henry Campbell, Edward's defense attorney and a longtime family friend, was visibly shaken. At 60, his hands trembled as he desperately shuffled through his papers, trying to understand how a child could have information he didn't. Edward was being accused of sabotaging his own car during a moment of emotional instability, a version that never made sense to Henry, but it was the only logical explanation given the initial forensic report. "Order in the court!" the judge yelled, banging his gavel forcefully. "Young lady, what is your name?" "Luna Smith," she answered, still holding the bear. My mum worked for them. Edward's eyes widened when he heard the name. He vaguely remembered the cleaning lady's daughter, a quiet child who was sometimes at the house when he got home from work. Luna would always greet him politely and then disappear, as if she knew instinctively to stay invisible in the world of adults. Patricia tried to compose herself, smoothing her hair and forcing a condescending smile. Your Honor, it's obvious this child has been coached by someone. Probably her mother, who lost her job after the accident and now wants revenge. It's a regrettable situation, but we can't allow personal grudges to contaminate these proceedings. Carla stood up, her legs shaking. I never said anything to her about this. Luna, come back here right now. But Luna shook her head, holding her ground in the center of the courtroom. I'm not lying. There's a machine in the teddy bear that records things. Grandpa gave it to me and said it was for playing, but I used it to record her talking on the phone. She said really bad things about my mom's boss. A deathly silence fell over the courtroom. All eyes were fixed on the child and her seemingly innocent teddy bear. Patricia laughed nervously, but the sound came out forced and artificial. That's ridiculous. A 7-year-old wouldn't know how to operate a recorder, let alone have access to Yes, I do, Luna interrupted, her voice gaining strength. Grandpa taught me before he went far away. He said it was important to save the things people say when they think no one is listening. D.A. Fields exchanged a look with the judge. The situation had taken a completely unexpected turn. Edward remained silent, but for the first time in months there was a spark of hope in his eyes. Henry, his lawyer, was beginning to realize he might have been defending an innocent man all along. Patricia felt cold sweat trickle down her back as she watched the determination on the little girl's face. This child she had always considered insignificant, a shadow that sometimes got in the way around the house, could be holding the key to destroying everything she had worked so meticulously to build. Luna hugged the teddy bear to her chest and waited, her small feet planted firmly on the courtroom floor, ready to change the course of everything with a courage only a child could possess in that moment. Judge Reynolds adjusted his glasses and leaned forward, studying the child who remained motionless in the center of the courtroom. Young lady, are you saying this teddy bear contains recordings? Luna nodded, her small fingers stroking the toy's worn fabric. Yes, sir. My grandpa Jack gave it to me before he went to the nursing home. He said it was special, that it could keep people's voices inside it. Carla felt the world spin when she heard her father's name. Jack had been an electronics technician for 40 years before developing early-onset dementia. In his last lucid days, he had given Luna strange gifts, calling them tools for tough times. Carla had thought they were just the delusions of a sick man. Patricia stood up again, her voice cutting through the air with forced authority. Your Honor, this is theater, an elaborate performance by desperate people. Even if there is some device in that toy, any recording would be inadmissible, obtained without consent. D.A. Fields frowned. Technically, you're correct about the legal issue, ma'am, but... He paused, looking at the girl's determined expression. We need to at least verify if there's anything in the toy. Edward raised his head, his eyes red from crying, and fixed them on Luna. 3 months ago, he was a prosperous man, owner of a construction company that employed 200 people. Now he was bankrupt, jailed, and accused of trying to take his own life in a moment of despair. His memory of the accident was fragmented. He remembered driving down the highway, the brakes suddenly failing, the steering wheel locking up, and then only darkness. Please, Edward whispered, his voice hoarse from weeks of disuse. If this child has something that can prove my innocence, Henry, his lawyer, approached the judge's bench. Your Honor, I request a forensic analysis of the object. Even if the recordings aren't admissible as primary evidence, they could guide our investigation. Patricia felt panic begin to rise in her chest. She vaguely remembered Luna around the house, always quiet, always in a corner. The girl would be there in the afternoons when Carla worked late, especially in the last few weeks before the accident, when Patricia had intensified her secret phone calls. Judge Reynolds banged his gavel softly. Bring the teddy bear here, young lady. Luna walked to the judge's bench with steady steps. Carla wanted to run and protect her daughter, but something in Luna's posture stopped her. There was a disturbing maturity in that 7-year-old, as if she knew the exact weight of her actions. "Here, look," Luna said, turning the bear around and showing a small, almost imperceptible compartment in its back. "Grandpa said to press here when I wanted it to eat people's words." A court officer approached with gloves, carefully removing a small digital device from inside the toy. It was a modern, miniaturized recorder, the kind used in professional investigations. Patricia laughed nervously. "See, a sophisticated piece of equipment like that in the hands of a child? This proves someone coached her. Probably her own mother, resentful for losing her job." Carla stood up, trembling with anger. "I never knew anything about this. Luna, when did you use this thing?" The girl turned to her mother, her eyes large and sincere. "In the afternoons when you stayed late to clean his office, I'd be in the kitchen doing homework, and she pointed at Patricia, talked on the phone a lot. She said things that scared me." Judge Reynolds ordered the court technician to connect the recorder to the sound system. "Let's hear a sample of what's on here." Patricia felt her hands begin to shake. She remembered several phone calls in the weeks before the accident. Calls with Marco, the mechanic she'd paid to sabotage Edward's car. Calls with Mr. Davis from the life insurance company, confirming the policy amounts. Calls with Richard, her lover, planning how they would split the money after Edward was no longer a problem. The first audio file began to play, Patricia's voice echoing clearly through the courtroom. "Marco, are you sure it will look like an accident? I can't take any chances. Yes, I know it's a lot of money, but it's worth it. When Edward dies, I'll get $2 million from the insurance, not to mention the company." A deathly silence fell over the courtroom. Edward's eyes widened, his face growing even paler. Henry dropped the pen he was holding. Carla covered her mouth with her hands, horrified. Patricia leaped from her chair. "This is a setup, an elaborate fake. Anyone can imitate a voice these days." But the audio continued. "Richard, honey, just a few more weeks and we'll be free. Edward has been so depressed lately that no one will suspect a thing when the accident happens. Everyone will think it was suicide. No, darling, he doesn't suspect a thing. He's so focused on the company's problems he barely notices me." Edward began to cry, not from despair, but from a mixture of relief and horror. Relief to discover he wasn't crazy, that he hadn't tried to kill himself. Horror to realize that the woman he had lived with for 15 years had coldly planned his death. Luna remained in the center of the courtroom, watching the adults around her with that unsettling maturity. "There's more," she said simply. She talked about other people too. People who are already dead. Patricia completely lost her composure. "Shut this child up. This is a circus, a farce. You can't believe a manipulated little girl." D.A. Fields stood up, his prosecutor's mind already connecting the dots. "Your Honor, I request that all the recordings be heard. If there are mentions of other victims—" Henry looked at Edward, who was now sobbing openly. "Ed, are you okay?" 15 years, Edward whispered. 15 years living with a woman who was planning to kill me. How did I not see it? How was I so blind?" Carla approached Luna, kneeling beside her. "Daughter." "Luna, why did you never tell me anything?" The girl looked at her mother with sad eyes. "I tried, Mom. Remember when I said the lady was saying bad things on the phone? You said I shouldn't listen to grown-up conversations." Carla felt her heart shatter. She vaguely remembered Luna mentioning something about strange conversations, but she was always so tired, so focused on working to support them both, that she hadn't paid enough attention. The technician interrupted the moment. "Judge, there are dozens of files here. They seem to be recordings made over several weeks." Patricia tried to head for the exit, but 2 bailiffs blocked her path. "Where do you think you're going, ma'am?" one of them asked. "This is a violation of my rights. I demand to speak to my lawyer. This child was clearly manipulated." Judge Reynolds banged his gavel energetically. "Order, Mrs. Miller. You will remain in your seat until we determine the extent of this evidence." Luna turned to Edward, who was watching her with a mixture of gratitude and astonishment. "Mr. Miller, you were always nice to me. You gave me candy when I came to work with my mom. I didn't want you to die." Edward tried to smile through his tears. "Thank you, Luna. You saved my life." but Luna shook her head sadly. I couldn't save the others. A chill ran through the courtroom. D.A. Fields leaned forward. What others, Luna? The girl hugged the empty teddy bear to her chest. She talked on the phone about her first husband and about a rich old man. She said it was easy because nobody suspected. Patricia screamed like a caged animal. That's a lie. A child can't understand complex contexts. She's making things up. But as she screamed, the technician continued playing the recordings, and Patricia's voice kept echoing through the courtroom, revealing sordid details about other crimes, other deaths, other meticulously executed plans. Edward looked at the woman he thought he knew and felt nauseous. How many people, Patricia? How many people did you kill? Patricia stopped screaming and looked at Edward with cold eyes, the mask of the suffering widow finally falling away. You never understood anything, Ed. You were never smart enough to see what was right in front of you. It was then that Luna dropped the final bombshell. There's a recording where she talks about her daughter, too. The courtroom went completely silent. Patricia turned a deathly shade of grey. The silence that followed Luna's revelation about Patricia's daughter was deafening. Patricia, who until then had maintained some semblance of control, was now visibly shaken, her hands trembling as she gripped the table in front of her. What daughter? Asked D.A. Fields, his voice cutting through the tense air of the courtroom. Mrs. Miller, do you have a daughter? Patricia tried to compose herself, but her voice came out shaky. That has no relevance to this case, my personal life. Her name is Isabella, Luna interrupted, her childish voice a stark contrast to the gravity of her words. She's 18 and she studies far away from here. The lady said she was getting in the way of her plans. Edward's eyes widened. In 15 years of marriage, Patricia had never mentioned having a daughter. He had always known she was married before, but she claimed they never had children. Patricia, you have a daughter, and you never told me? Henry stood up, his lawyer's mind working quickly. Your Honor, if there is an undisclosed child, this could have significant implications regarding financial motives for the alleged crimes. Judge Reynolds nodded gravely. Continue playing the recording, specifically anything about this daughter. The technician fiddled with the equipment until he found another file. Patricia's voice once again echoed through the courtroom, but this time there was an even more chilling coldness to it. Richard, you don't understand. Isabella turns 18 in 2 weeks. If she finds out about her biological father's inheritance, everything goes down the drain. No, honey, she can't know that Anthony left everything to her. If she claims her rights, there will be nothing left for us. Carla hugged Luna tighter, whispering in her daughter's ear. My child, how much suffering did you witness all alone? She felt a deep pain in her chest, realizing she had failed to protect Luna from the cruelty of the adult world. While she was worried about working hard to support them, her daughter was absorbing horrors no child should ever know. The recording continued. The plan is simple. I eliminate Edward first, get the insurance and the company. Then I take care of Isabella. An accident on the highway when she comes to visit for the holidays. No one will suspect a thing. The poor mother who lost her husband and then her only daughter in separate tragedies. Edward threw up, literally. Henry quickly grabbed a trash can and placed it beside his client, who was as pale as a ghost. 15 years, Edward muttered between heaves. 15 years sharing a bed with a monster. Patricia exploded in a rage. Stop this! This is a violation. You have no right to expose private conversations. I demand this stop now. But the judge just gestured for the recordings to continue. Luna remained in the center of the courtroom, watching the adults with a deep sadness in her eyes. She also talked about hurting me and my mum if we told anyone. Carla felt her blood run cold. What? Luna, when was this? After Mr. Miller went to the hospital, Luna answered in her small voice. She came to our house one night. She said that if Mom said anything weird to anyone, bad things would happen to us. She said accidents happen to people who don't know how to keep their mouths shut. The memory hit Carla like a punch to the gut. 3 weeks after Edward's accident, Patricia had shown up at their simple apartment in a working-class neighborhood. She'd said she was concerned for Carla and Luna's well-being, offering financial help for your years of service. At the time, Carla had found it strange, but she was desperate for money and accepted the amount without much question. She gave me money, Carla whispered to herself, the realization striking her like lightning. She gave me money to keep quiet, and I didn't even realize it was a bribe. D.A. Fields approached Carla. Ma'am, did you receive payments from the defendant after the accident? Carla nodded, ashamed. She said it was to help out for my years of work. I was unemployed, desperate. I didn't think... It wasn't your fault, Mom, Luna said, pulling away from her mother's embrace and walking to stand before Patricia. You're a bad lady, a very bad lady, but you're not going to hurt anyone else. Patricia looked down at the small child staring up at her without fear. There was something in Luna's eyes that deeply unsettled her, an adult's determination in a child's body, a courage she herself had never possessed. You don't know anything, you stupid kid, Patricia snarled. All pretense of dignity gone, you have no idea what you're talking about. Yes, I do, Luna replied calmly. I know you killed 3 people. I know you were going to kill Mr. Miller, and I know you were going to kill your own daughter for money. Edward, though still sick, managed to stand. He looked at Patricia with a mixture of horror and pity. My God, Patricia, your own daughter. How could you plan to kill your own daughter? Patricia laughed, but it was a bitter, empty sound. Isabella was never really my daughter. She was just an obligation Anthony left me with when he died. A stone. In my path to financial freedom. The technician interrupted with more revelations from the recordings. Judge Reynolds, there are detailed conversations here about the previous deaths. It seems she poisoned her first husband and pushed an elderly man down the stairs. Henry was taking notes frantically. Ed, did you know her first husband died? Edward shook his head, still in shock. She said he had a heart attack. He was young, but those things happen. And the rich old man she mentioned? Asked D.A. Fields. Does anyone know who that was? Luna raised her small hand. It was Mr. Peterson. She said on the phone that he was very old and that no one thought it was strange when he fell down the stairs at his house. Carla vaguely remembered Patricia commenting on the death of an elderly acquaintance a few years back. At the time, it had seemed like just a casual conversation about tragedies that happen to older people. Judge Reynolds was visibly shaken by the revelations. In 40 years on the bench, he had dealt with many shocking cases, but Patricia's calculated coldness was disturbing even for him. How many recordings are there in total? 63 files. Your Honor, the technician replied, covering approximately 2 months of phone conversations. Patricia tried one last gambit. Even if these recordings are real, they were obtained illegally. A child cannot consent to record conversations. This is inadmissible. D.A. Fields smiled for the first time that grim day. Actually, Ma'am, the recordings were made in a domestic environment where the child had a legal right to be, and given the context of threats against her and her mother, they could be considered evidence of self-defense. Henry turned to Edward. Ed, do you want to press charges against her for attempted murder? Edward looked at Patricia, the woman who had shared his bed for 15 years while planning his death. I want her to pay for everything, for every lie, for every life she took, for every child she traumatized with her evil. Luna approached Edward and gently touched his hand. Mr. Miller, are you going to be okay now? Edward knelt to the girl's level, tears streaming down his face. Thanks to you, Luna. You are the bravest child I have ever met. Luna smiled sadly. I just didn't want my mum to be out of a job. And I didn't want you to die. Good people don't deserve bad things. Carla came over and hugged both Edward and Luna. Mr. Miller, I'm so sorry about all of this. If I had known... Nobody knew, Edward replied gently. Not even me, and I lived with her. Luna was the only one smart enough to notice and brave enough to act. Judge Reynolds banged his gavel. Given the weight of this evidence, I am ordering the immediate arrest of Mrs. Patricia Miller and the release of Mr. Edward Miller. This case is suspended pending a full investigation into the other allegations. As the bailiffs approached to arrest Patricia, she looked one last time at Luna. You destroyed everything, she hissed through her teeth. Luna looked back at her, unafraid. I saved people. The difference is that I'm good and you're bad." As Patricia was led out of the courtroom in handcuffs, Edward turned to Carla. "I need to talk to you both. I have a proposal to make." But before he could continue, Luna interrupted him with a question that sent a shiver down everyone's spine. "Mr. Miller, where is her daughter right now?" Luna's question echoed through the courtroom like a funeral bell. Edward felt his blood run cold as the realization hit him with full force. If Patricia was willing to kill her own daughter for inheritance money, and now she had been exposed, what guarantee was there that Isabella was safe? D.A. Fields immediately grabbed his cell phone. "I need to locate Isabella Mendez urgently. If she was part of her mother's murder plot—" "Her last name wouldn't be Miller," Edward interrupted, his voice trembling. "If Patricia never told me about her, she probably kept her first husband's name." Henry stood up quickly. "Ed, do you have any information about where this girl goes to school? Any detail Patricia might have let slip?" Edward ran his hands through his hair, trying to remember. "She once mentioned a private university. Something about expensive tuition. She said it was a necessary investment, but at the time I thought she was talking about courses for herself." Luna let go of Carla's hand and approached Edward. "Mr. Miller, she said on the phone that her daughter was coming to visit for the December holidays. She said it would be easy because it's a dangerous road." Carla felt a wave of nausea. The December holidays were just a week away. "My God, Luna, you heard her planning to kill this girl over the holidays." Luna nodded gravely, that unsettling maturity reappearing in her childish eyes. "She talked about a spot on the mountain road where accidents have happened before. She said no one would suspect anything if another car went off the road." Judge Reynolds banged his gavel energetically. "Mr. Fields, I consider this an emergency situation. We need to locate this young woman immediately." Edward stood up, staggering slightly. 3 months of jail and emotional stress had taken their toll, but the adrenaline of the situation kept him on his feet. "I have contacts. I can help find her." "No," Luna said firmly, surprising everyone with her determination. "She can't know you're looking. If she realizes she's been found out, she might hurt her daughter before she even comes home." Luna's childish wisdom left all the adults silent. Carla looked at her daughter with a mixture of pride and deep sadness. How had a 7-year-old developed such an understanding of human evil? Henry picked up his phone. "I have a private investigator I work with. He can locate the girl discreetly, without alerting anyone." While Henry made the calls, Edward sat down heavily in a chair. The reality of 15 years of marriage to a murderer was finally sinking in. "How was I so blind?" he muttered to himself. Carla approached him, Luna still by her side. "Mr. Miller, you're not guilty of anything. Evil people are very good at hiding who they really are." "But there were signs," Edward replied, his tears returning. "Little things I ignored. The way she reacted when I mentioned changing my will. How she always had family emergencies that took her out of the house at convenient times. The coldness when I tried to show real affection." Luna gently touched Edward's arm. "Mr. Miller, good people always think other people are good too. It's not your fault." Henry's investigator called back in 15 minutes. "I found an Isabella Mendez, 18, a pre-med student at St. Mark's University, 3 hours from here. Parents deceased, mother listed as Patricia Mendez Miller, father Anthony Mendez, died 5 years ago." Edward closed his eyes. "Anthony Mendez. I remember now. Patricia mentioned that name a few times in the early years of our marriage, always saying he was a family friend who had died young. She never said he was her ex-husband." D.A. Fields was jotting everything down quickly. "We need to contact the university and verify if she's planning to travel home in the coming weeks." "She is," Luna said with absolute certainty. "The lady said she had already bought her daughter's bus ticket. She said she was going to pick her up at the bus terminal on December 22nd. Carla hugged Luna tighter. "My child, how did you keep all this to yourself? It must have been so scary to hear those things." Luna rested her head on her mother's shoulder. "I was scared, Mom, very scared. But Grandpa Jack taught me that sometimes kids see things that adults don't. He said it was my job to protect the good people. Edward felt a deep admiration for this extraordinary child. Luna, when this is all over, I want you and your mother to be part of my family. You saved my life and I will never forget it. Henry hung up another call. The university confirmed that Isabella Mendez is registered to travel for the winter break, but there's a problem. She's no longer on campus. She left for home yesterday. A chilling silence fell over the group. D.A. Fields turned pale. If she's already on her way, we need to alert the state police, Judge Reynolds said immediately. But Luna shook her head. It won't do any good. The lady wasn't going to do anything on the road. That was just to make it look like an accident afterward. Edward frowned. What do you mean, Luna? She talked on the phone about putting something in her daughter's car before she arrived, something to make the car stop working when she was driving back to the university. Carla felt a chill run down her spine. You mean she was going to sabotage the car here, just like she did to Mr. Miller? Luna nodded. She knows a man who works on cars. He was going to do the same thing he did to Mr. Miller's car, but it would only start to fail after a few miles on the highway. Henry was calling his investigator again. Marco, I need you to find out everything you can about a mechanic Patricia Miller might know, someone willing to sabotage cars. Edward felt sick again. The same guy who sabotaged my car was probably going to sabotage her daughter's car. D.A. Fields was coordinating with other officers. We need to find this mechanic before Isabella arrives. If we can catch him in the act. His name is Marco Silva, Luna said calmly. He has a garage on the south side of the city. The lady always said his full name when she got mad at him on the phone. Everyone looked at Luna in astonishment. Henry laughed nervously. Luna, you have a better memory than any professional detective. Luna shrugged. I paid attention because I knew it was important. Grandpa Jack always told me to remember the details when adults did bad things. Carla felt a wave of longing and sadness. Her father, even in his last lucid moments, had tried to protect Luna in some way. He knew the world was dangerous for observant children like her. Judge Reynolds made a decision. I'm issuing a warrant for the search and seizure of this Marco Silva's garage. Mr. Fields, coordinate with the police to intercept Isabella before she reaches her destination. Edward stood up again, this time more firmly. I'm going with them. If this girl is the stepdaughter I never knew I had, she's my responsibility now. Mr. Miller, Luna said, tugging on his suit sleeve, Miss Isabella doesn't know her mother is evil. It's going to be very hard for her to believe it. Edward knelt to Luna's level again. You're right. It will be devastating for her to find out the truth about her own mother, especially coming from a stepfather she doesn't even know exists. Henry checked his watch. If she left the university yesterday and is coming by bus, she should arrive here tonight or tomorrow morning. D.A. Fields was coordinating over the phone. The police are on their way to Marco Silva's garage. We have teams positioned at the main bus terminal. Luna turned to her mother. Mum, Miss Isabella is going to need a friend when she finds out the truth, someone who understands how much it hurts to find out that adults lie. Carla kissed her daughter's head. You want to help her, don't you, my child? Luna nodded. She's going to be very sad. Sad people need to be taken care of. Just then, D.A. Fields' phone rang urgently. He answered, and his face went pale. They found Marco Silva at the garage. He's dead. The courtroom went completely silent. Edward felt his legs give way. Dead? How? D.A. Fields slowly hung up the phone. Apparent suicide, but he left a letter confessing everything about the sabotaged cars. Luna squeezed her mother's hand tightly. She killed him too, so he wouldn't tell her secrets. The terrible realization hit everyone at once. If Patricia had eliminated Marco Silva, how many other people would she eliminate to protect her secrets? And more importantly, did this mean Isabella was walking straight into a deadly trap that had already been set? The news of Marco Silva's death hit the courtroom like a bomb. Edward sank into his chair, the reality of the situation finally crystallizing in his mind. Patricia wasn't just a murderer, she was a meticulous killer who eliminated witnesses. D.A. Fields received more details over the phone. The confession letter is handwritten, but forensics suspects it was forced. There are signs of a struggle at the garage, and Marco Silva's hands were tied when he was found. Luna approached Edward, her small steps echoing in the tense silence. "Mr. Miller, if she killed the carman, she's already prepared something for her daughter's arrival." Carla felt a shiver run down her spine. During 2 years of working for Patricia, she had noticed her boss's controlling nature, but she never imagined she was living with someone capable of such coldness. Luna's right. Patricia always planned everything in advance. If she eliminated Marco Silva, it's because the plan for Isabella was already in motion. Henry was frantically coordinating with his investigator over the phone. "I need all the details on Isabella's arrival. What time, which bus terminal, what transportation she'll use from there to the house." Judge Reynolds stood up, his judicial authority cutting through the chaos. "Mr. Fields, I want a full police escort for this young woman, and I want Patricia Miller in total isolation. No phone, no visitors, no outside communication." "Your Honor," D.A. Fields interrupted, "there's a problem. Patricia was released on bail 2 hours ago, before the new evidence about Marco Silva came to light." The silence that followed was deafening. Edward felt the world spin. "Released? What do you mean, released?" "Her lawyer managed to get bail, arguing the evidence was circumstantial. That was before we found Marco Silva dead." Luna tugged on Edward's suit sleeve. "Mr. Miller, if she's out, she could be waiting for her daughter to arrive." Carla hugged Luna protectively. "My God, that girl is walking straight into a trap." Edward stood up, a steely determination replacing the shock. "Where did Patricia live before she married me? She must have gone back there." Henry quickly consulted his papers. According to the marriage records, she lived in a downtown apartment, 127 Blossom Street. "No," Luna said, shaking her head. "She talked on the phone about a house on the south side. She said that's where she was going to meet her daughter. She talked about a basement where no one would hear." Screams. Carla felt nauseous. "Luna, you heard her talk about a basement?" Luna nodded sadly. She was talking to the man, Richard, about preparing the place. She said that after her daughter's accident, they were going to live in the house together. Edward ran his hands over his face, trying to process the information. "Richard, she mentioned that name in the recordings. He must be her accomplice. D.A. Fields was already coordinating police operations. I need the full address of this house on the south side, and we need to locate this Richard." "Richard Almeida," Luna said with the precision. That had become her trademark. She always said his full name when she got mad at him. "He works at a bank downtown." Henry was impressed by the girl's memory. "Luna, you're extraordinary. How do you remember so many details?" Luna shrugged, a deep sadness in her eyes. "When you're scared all the time, you remember everything, because you never know when the information will be important to save someone." Carla felt her heart break. Her 7-year-old daughter had lived in a constant state of terror for months, absorbing information about multiple homicides, without an adult to protect her or validate her fears. Henry's investigator's phone rang. "We found Isabella Mendez. She's on a bus that arrives at the central bus terminal in 3 hours. But there's a problem. She's changed her final destination. Instead of going straight home, she's heading to an address on the south side." Edward closed his eyes, feeling a deep pain in his chest. She's already being led into the trap. D.A. Fields was coordinating multiple police teams. "We have units heading to the south side, but we need the exact address." Luna approached the phone. "I can help find the house." I heard the lady giving directions to the man, Richard. She talked about a blue house with a black gate near a bakery that has an orange cat in the window. Carla looked at her daughter with admiration and sadness. "My child, you even remember the bakery's cat." "Grandpa Jack taught me that small details are sometimes the most important," Luna replied. "He said that bad people always forget the small details when they're lying." Edward knelt to Luna's level. "Luna, you saved my life. Now we're going to save Isabella too." But Luna shook her head sadly. "Mr. Miller, I heard more things, in the recordings. Very bad things about what the lady wants to do to her daughter before the accident." D.A. Fields came closer. "What kind of things, Luna?" The girl hesitated, looking at her mother as if asking for permission to speak of horrors no child should know. Carla nodded encouragingly. She wanted her daughter to sign papers before she died, papers that gave all the money from her father to the lady, and if she didn't want to sign... Luna couldn't finish the sentence, but everyone understood the implication. Edward felt fury rise in his chest. Torture. She was going to torture her own daughter to get her signature on the documents. Henry was pale. Ed, that means Isabella isn't going to die in a quick accident. Patricia will keep her alive until she gets what she wants. Which gives us time to find her, D.A. Fields said with renewed determination. Luna tugged on Edward's sleeve again. Mr. Miller, there's something I haven't said yet, about the lady's daughter. Everyone turned to Luna, expecting another devastating revelation. She doesn't know she's the lady's daughter. The silence was total. Edward frowned. What do you mean? The lady said on the phone that the girl grew up thinking she was an orphan, that she never knew who her real mother was. The lady was only going to reveal herself now to get her to sign the papers. Carla covered her mouth with her hands. My God, this girl is going to meet a woman claiming to be her mother, who is actually her murderer. Edward felt a deep pain in his chest. Isabella wasn't just walking into a deadly trap. She was walking into a meeting with a mother she never knew she had, only to discover that this mother wanted to kill her. How can anyone be so cruel? Edward muttered to himself. Luna approached him and touched his hand gently. Mr. Miller, very bad people exist in the world, but very good people exist too. Like you, like my mom, like the police officers who are going to save the girl. D.A. Fields received an urgent call. After a few minutes, he hung up with a grave expression. We found the house on the south side, but there's suspicious movement at the location. It looks like Patricia and Richard are already preparing something. Edward stood up, determined. I'm going with the police. No, Luna said firmly, surprising everyone again. If Miss Isabella sees you there, she'll be confused. She needs to trust someone, and she won't trust a stranger who shows up at the house where she's being held captive. Henry nodded. Luna's right. Isabella needs to see friendly faces, not more strangers. Luna looked at her mother. Mum, I want to go. When the police save her, she's going to need a friend. Carla shook her head vehemently. Absolutely not, Luna. It's too dangerous. Mom, she's going to be scared just like I was when I heard the bad things on the phone. I know what it's like to be afraid and have no one believe you. Edward looked at Luna with deep admiration. She has a point, Carla. Isabella is going to need someone who understands childhood trauma. D.A. Fields checked his watch. Her bus arrives in 2 hours. We need to intercept her before she reaches her final destination. Just then the phone rang again, and D.A. Fields answered urgently. After a tense conversation, he hung up with a grim expression. Isabella is not on the bus, he said slowly. She got off 3 stops before the city. Someone intercepted her during the trip. Luna squeezed her mother's hand tightly. She's already been taken. The lady wasn't waiting for her to arrive. She went and got her on the way. Edward felt a cold despair rise in his chest. That means Isabella is already at the house and Patricia has more time than we thought to get what she wants from her. Luna looked at all the adults around her, that unsettling maturity reappearing in her child's eyes. It also means that if we don't get there soon, Miss Isabella is going to find out who her mother is in the worst way possible. The blue house with the black gate on the south side looked too ordinary to harbor such evil. Isabella Mendez, an 18-year-old with dark hair and eyes weary from travel, nervously watched the elegant woman who had introduced herself as a family friend at a small-town bus station 3 hours before her final destination. Sorry for the confusion, dear, Patricia said with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. When I heard you were coming home, I thought I'd surprise you. Isabella clutched her backpack tightly, a primal instinct warning her that something was wrong. You said you knew my adoptive parents, but they never mentioned having friends here. Well, there are a lot of things your adoptive parents didn't tell you, Patricia replied, leading Isabella through the modestly furnished living room toward a sofa. In fact, that's why I asked you to come here. There are truths about your origin that you deserve to know. In the courthouse, 40 minutes away, Edward paced nervously while D.A. Fields coordinated the rescue operation. Luna sat beside Carla, her eyes fixed on the phone relaying police updates. Teams are taking positions around the house, D.A. Fields reported. But they have to be extremely careful. If Patricia realizes she's surrounded, she could kill Isabella immediately, Edward finished, his voice thick with anguish. 15 years married to her, and I'm just now realizing I never knew her at all. Luna raised her small hand. Mr. Miller, in the recording, she said she was going to tell her daughter everything first. She wants the girl to suffer before she dies. Carla hugged Luna tighter. My child, how can you talk about such terrible things so calmly? Luna looked at her mother with eyes far too old for her age. Because if I don't talk, no one will know how to save her. Back at the house, Isabella was growing more and more restless. Patricia had made tea, but something about the woman's demeanor made her hesitate to drink it. Mom, Isabella began, realizing she didn't even know the woman's name. I'm sorry, but you didn't tell me your name. Patricia smiled, and this time there was something genuinely sinister in her expression. How rude of me. My name is Patricia Mendez. Isabella's eyes widened. Mendez was her last name, the name of the father she had lost when she was just a baby. Mendez, are you related to my father? Oh, honey, Patricia said, sitting in the armchair across from Isabella. I'm not related to your father. I am your mother. The silence that followed was deafening. Isabella felt as if the world had stopped spinning. My mother. But my mother died when I was born. That's what they told me. Patricia laughed softly, but the sound was devoid of any maternal warmth. Your dear adoptive parents lied to you your entire life. I didn't die, dear. I simply chose not to raise you. The words hit Isabella like physical blows. She shot up abruptly, nearly knocking over the teacup. That can't be true. You're lying. Sit down, Patricia said, and for the first time, her voice carried a veiled threat. We have a lot to talk about, and you'll want to hear all of it sitting down. Isabella looked around the room for the first time with real attention. There were no family photos, nothing to indicate a loving mother had prepared this space to welcome her long-lost daughter. There was only a sterile coldness that sent shivers down her spine. In the courthouse, D.A. Fields' phone rang urgently. Teams are in position, but there's a problem. The house only has 2 exits, the front door and a back door that leads directly to the basement. Edward felt a chill run down his spine. The basement? Luna said Patricia mentioned a basement. Luna stood up from her chair. She said the basement was where no one would hear the screams. If they're talking in the living room now, she's going to take the girl to the basement when she starts to hurt her. Henry was coordinating with the investigator. We need blueprints of the house, any way to know the internal layout. D.A. Fields received information over the phone. Police have visual contact through a side window. Patricia and Isabella are in the main living room talking. Isabella appears to be in shock. Edward clenched his fists. She's finding out about her mother. It must be devastating. Carla looked at Luna with concern. My child, are you sure you want to be here listening to all this? It's too much for a child. Luna shook her head determinedly. I have to be here. When Miss Isabella is saved, she's going to need someone who understands what it's like to find out adults have lied to you your whole life. At the house, Patricia had stood up and was pacing the room like a predator circling its prey. Do you know why I chose not to raise you, Isabella? Because you were an obstacle. Your father had left everything to you in his will, but as long as you were a minor being raised by other people, I controlled the money. Isabella felt nausea rising in her stomach. You abandoned your own daughter for money? Abandon is such a strong word, Patricia said casually. I'd say I made a long-term investment. I let other people spend their time and money raising you, while I enjoyed your father's inheritance. But now you're 18, Patricia continued, stopping in front of Isabella. And legally, the entire inheritance passes to you. Unless, of course, you sign a few documents transferring everything back to me. Isabella stood up, trembling with rage and horror. You're insane if you think I'm going to sign anything. And even if I did, do you think I would just forget that you abandoned me? Patricia smiled again, and this time there was nothing human in her expression. "Oh, honey, you won't forget anything, because after you sign the papers, you won't be around to remember anything at all." The realization hit Isabella like a bolt of lightning. Her biological mother hadn't shown up to reconnect. She had shown up to kill her. "You're planning to kill me," Isabella whispered, backing away toward the door. "Of course I am," Patricia said, pulling a small pistol from her purse. "Did you really think I'd leave a living witness? After all the work I went through to keep this secret for 18 years. Isabella felt her legs give. "Way, you're a monster." "I'm a survivor," Patricia corrected, "and you, my dear daughter, are just one final obstacle between me and a comfortable life." In the courthouse, D.A. Fields received an urgent report from the tactical team. "Patricia has drawn a weapon. I repeat, suspect is armed. Isabella is in imminent danger." Edward felt his world collapse. "They have to go in now." "If they breach, Patricia could shoot Isabella immediately," D.A. Fields replied. "They need a distraction." Luna stood up determinedly. "I know how to distract her." Carla grabbed her by the arm. "Luna, no, it's too dangerous. Mom, if I call there and say I'm the cleaning lady's daughter, she'll be curious about how much I know. It'll buy the police time to get inside." Edward looked at Luna with a mix of admiration and horror. "You're 7 years old. I can't let you risk yourself like this. Mr. Miller, I already took a risk when I decided to record her conversations, and I took a risk when I decided to speak up here in court. Now I'm going to take one last risk to save her daughter." Henry was checking the viability of the plan. Actually, it could work. If Patricia realizes Luna knows about her, she'll want to find out how much has been discovered. D.A. Fields was torn between the logic of the plan and the horror of using a 7-year-old as bait. "It's too risky." "Sir," Luna said with that unsettling seriousness, "bad people always underestimate children. That's why I was able to record her for so long. She'll answer the phone if she knows it's me." At the house, Patricia was forcing Isabella toward a door that led downstairs. "Come on, dear. We'll have more privacy for our final conversation in the basement." Isabella resisted, clinging to the doorframe. "Someone will miss me. My adoptive parents will look for me." "Your adoptive parents think you're visiting an aunt who never existed," Patricia replied coldly. "That's what I told them when I convinced them to let you travel." The horror of the situation was becoming clear to Isabella. Patricia had planned everything meticulously, eliminating any possibility of rescue. Just then, the house phone rang. Patricia stopped, frowning. No one should have that number. "Be quiet," she hissed at Isabella, cautiously picking up the receiver. "Hello?" "Hi, Mom," came Luna's voice from the other end of the line, clear and childish. "It's Luna, Carla's daughter." Patricia instantly went pale, gripping the gun tighter. "How did you get this number?" "I heard you give the number to the man, Richard," Luna answered calmly. "You remember me, right? I was the little girl who sat in the kitchen when my mom cleaned your house." Isabella's eyes widened as she listened to the conversation. A child was on the other end of the line, speaking to her mother as if she'd known her for a long time. Patricia felt panic rise in her chest. "What do you want?" "I wanted to warn you about something," Luna said, her voice maintaining that unsettling calm. "I told the police everything. About the recordings, about Mr. Miller, about your daughter. They're on their way." Patricia glanced desperately out the window, but couldn't see anything suspicious. "You're lying, you little brat." "No, I'm not," Luna replied. "And you know what, ma'am? Your daughter deserves a better mother than you." It was then that Patricia heard the unmistakable sound of police cars approaching the house. The sound of approaching sirens cut through the afternoon air like sharp blades. Patricia dropped the phone and ran to the window, seeing the police cruisers taking positions around the house. Her meticulously constructed plan was crumbling before her eyes, destroyed by a 7-year-old girl she had considered too insignificant to pose any threat. "Damn kid!" Patricia screamed, pointing the gun at Isabella, who was pressed against the wall, trembling with terror and confusion. All because of a little pest who couldn't keep her mouth shut. Isabella looked back and forth between the gun in her hands and the face twisted with rage of the woman who claimed to be her mother. 18 years of a sheltered life with her adoptive parents had not prepared her to discover that her biological mother was a murderer, planning to kill her. "Please," Isabella whispered, tears streaming down her face. "I don't understand what's happening. If you're really my mother—" "I'm not your mother," Patricia exploded, cutting her off. "I was never your mother. You were just a mistake your father insisted on keeping, an obstacle between me and the money I deserved." The words struck Isabella like daggers. Throughout her teenage years, she had dreamed of finding her biological mother, imagining there might be a loving explanation for her abandonment. To discover that she was not only unloved, but that her very existence was seen as a hindrance, was more devastating than any physical threat. In the courthouse, everyone waited tensely for updates on the police operation. Luna remained by the phone, still connected to the house, listening to Patricia's screams through the line. "Luna, hang up now," Carla pleaded, trying to pull her daughter away from the phone. "No, Mom," Luna replied firmly. "If I hang up, she might hurt the girl before the police can get in." Edward paced the room nervously, his hands shaking. How? Did that child have the courage to do this? Luna is 7 years old, and she's confronting a murderer to save someone she doesn't even know. DA Fields was receiving constant reports from the operation. The teams are in position, but Patricia has Isabella as a hostage in the middle of the room. Any sudden move, she could shoot, Henry finished grimly. At the house, Patricia realized she was cornered. Through the window, she could see officers positioned with guns aimed at the house. All exits were blocked, and her only advantage was having Isabella as a human shield. "Listen. Carefully," Patricia hissed at Isabella, pressing the gun against her back. "You're going to do exactly what I say. If you try anything, I'll shoot." Isabella was sobbing uncontrollably, but nodded. Her young mind struggled to process the reality that the woman threatening her was the same one who should have protected her from birth. The police loudspeaker cut through the air. "Patricia Miller, you are surrounded. Release the hostage and come out with your hands up." Patricia laughed bitterly. "Release the hostage. She's the only thing keeping me alive." It was then that a small but determined voice echoed from the police loudspeaker. Luna had asked to speak to Patricia through the cruiser's communication system. "Ma'am, it's Luna again." Patricia's eyes widened, and she looked around in confusion. "How are you?" "I'm here with the police," Luna's voice continued, "and I want to talk to Miss Isabella." Patricia hesitated, but her curiosity about how much this child really knew made her push Isabella closer to the window. "Talk," she snarled. Luna took a deep breath before continuing, her voice carrying a maturity that was disturbing for her age. "Miss Isabella, my name is Luna. I'm the daughter of the cleaning lady who worked for that bad woman. I heard her planning to hurt you and your stepfather, Edward." Isabella's eyes widened. "Stepfather Edward?" Through the loudspeaker, Luna continued. "She married a good man and tried to kill him too. She killed other people before. Your real mother is not a good person." Luna's words echoed in Isabella's wounded soul as a painful but necessary validation. She wasn't imagining things. The woman claiming to be her mother really was a monster. Patricia was furious at the child's intervention. "Shut up, you little pest. You don't know anything." "Yes, I do," Luna replied calmly. "I know you never loved anyone but yourself, and I know that Miss Isabella deserves a family that truly cares about her." In the courthouse, Carla was crying silently as she watched her 7-year-old daughter conduct a negotiation with an armed murderer. Edward was visibly moved by the girl's courage. "That child is extraordinary," he murmured to Henry. "She's literally saving a life with words." At the house, Isabella had found a spark of courage in Luna's words. "You heard her," she said to Patricia, her voice still trembling but gaining strength. "I deserve a family that cares about me. And you were never a mother. You're just a bad person who happened to give birth to me." Patricia pressed the gun harder into Isabella's back. "Shut up. You're nothing but a spoiled brat who never understood how the real world works." "The real world?" Isabella turned to face Patricia, defying the gun. "The real world is where mothers protect their children, not plan to kill them for money." Isabella's sudden courage caught Patricia off guard. For a moment, she hesitated, and in that moment the Special Forces team acted. The front door exploded in a shower of splintered wood. Armed officers stormed the house in a coordinated movement, shouting commands. In a panic, Patricia turned the gun toward the officers, momentarily forgetting about Isabella. It was enough. Isabella threw herself to the side, rolling behind the sofa as Patricia fired wildly. The officers tackled her to the ground in seconds, disarming her as she screamed obscenities. "No!" Patricia shrieked as she was handcuffed. "She's my daughter. I have rights over her." One of the officers helped Isabella to her feet. The young woman was in shock, shaking violently as she watched the woman who claimed to be her mother being dragged out of the house. "It's okay," the officer said gently. "You're safe now." But Isabella didn't feel safe. She felt lost, broken, as if her entire world had been turned upside down. For 18 years, she had grown up hoping that maybe her biological mother would look for her someday. Now she knew that her mother had spent all those years planning to kill her. In the courthouse, the relief was palpable when D.A. Fields received confirmation that Isabella was safe. Luna finally stepped away from the phone, allowing her mother to hug her tightly. "My brave girl," Carla whispered in her daughter's ear. "You saved her." Luna leaned against her mother's shoulder, finally allowing the emotional exhaustion to hit her. "She was so scared, Mom. Just like I used to be when I heard the bad conversations." Edward approached Luna and Carla. "Luna, I don't know how to thank you. You not only saved my life, now you've saved Isabella's too." Luna looked up at Edward with tired eyes. "Mr. Miller, now Miss Isabella has no one. She's going to need a real family." Edward felt a tightness in his chest. Luna was right. Isabella had lost her adoptive parents in a car accident 6 months ago. That's why she was coming back from college, to settle inheritance matters. And now she had discovered that her biological mother was a murderer who wanted to kill her. "She will have a family," Edward said determinedly. "If she'll have me, I'll be the father she deserves. The father I should have been all these years if I'd known she existed." Henry checked his watch. "Ed, the teams are bringing Isabella here. She's going to want answers, explanations for everything." D.A. Fields hung up another call. "There's another development. They found Richard Almeida, Patricia's accomplice, trying to flee the city. He confessed to everything in exchange for a reduced sentence." Luna lifted her head from her mother's shoulder. "What did he confess?" "That he helped Patricia plan not only Edward's death but also the previous murders, and that the original plan was to kill Isabella today and split her father's inheritance." Edward felt nauseous again. My God, Isabella escaped being murdered by a matter of hours. Judge Reynolds, who had remained relatively quiet during the operation, finally spoke. "This child," he said, looking at Luna, "exposed a criminal network that could have continued for years. How many other people would Patricia have killed if Luna hadn't had the courage to record those conversations?" Carla hugged Luna tighter. "My daughter, you're an angel who protects innocent people." Luna shook her head. "I'm not an angel, Mom. I just wanted the bad things to stop happening to good people." Just then, the courtroom doors opened, and Isabella entered, accompanied by a social worker and a police officer. She was pale, her eyes red from crying, and her hands were visibly shaking. When her eyes met Edward's, the stepfather she never knew existed. Isabella stopped in the middle of the aisle, uncertainty and pain written on her young face. Edward stood up slowly, unsure how to approach the young woman who was technically his stepdaughter, but whom he had only met through the horrific revelations of that day. It was Luna who broke the silence, walking up to Isabella with her small but determined steps. "Hi," Luna said simply. "I'm Luna. I helped save you." Isabella looked down, seeing the small child who had risked everything for a stranger. You're the girl who talked to me on the phone?" Luna nodded. "Are you okay? Did she hurt you?" Isabella knelt to Luna's level, fresh tears streaming down her face. "She hurt me here," she said, touching her chest over her heart. "But you helped me not to break completely." Luna reached out her small hand and gently touched Isabella's face. "Now you're going to have a good family. Mr. Miller is very nice, and my mom makes the best sandwiches in the world." Isabella smiled through her tears. You want me as family? It was Edward who answered, his voice thick with emotion. Isabella, if you'll have me, I would very much like to be your father. For real this time. Isabella looked at Edward, then at Luna and Carla, and for the first time that terrible day, she felt a small spark of hope grow in her broken heart. But then D.A. Fields received a call that made his expression darken. After hanging up, he looked at the group with concern. There's a problem. Patricia managed to make one phone call from jail before being put in isolation. Someone else is involved in this. The revelation that Patricia had managed to make a call from jail created a renewed atmosphere of tension in the courtroom. Isabella, who had begun to feel a small spark of relief, started trembling visibly again. Edward instinctively positioned himself between her and the door, as if expecting someone to burst in at any moment. Who did she call? Edward asked, his voice heavy with concern. D.A. Fields consulted his notes. The log shows a call to a lawyer named Marcus Perry, but when we tried to contact him, we found his office was cleared out 2 weeks ago. Luna approached Isabella, who was sitting in a chair looking like she was about to faint. Miss Isabella, the lady talked about that man in the recordings too. Carla hugged Luna protectively. My child, do you remember everything she said? Luna nodded with that unsettling seriousness. She said he helped her make fake papers to hide money and property. Henry stood up quickly. Ed, if there's a corrupt lawyer involved, it means Patricia's crimes could be even more extensive than we imagined. Judge Reynolds banged his gavel softly. Mr. Fields, I want a full investigation into this Marcus Perry, and I want police protection for everyone involved in this case. Isabella looked around the room with lost eyes. It never ends, does it? Every time I think it's over, something else terrible comes up. Edward approached her carefully. Isabella, I know it's hard to process all this, but you're not alone anymore. We won't let anything happen to you. How can you be sure? Isabella asked, her voice small and broken. Until this morning, I didn't even know you existed. How can I trust anyone after finding out my own mother wanted to kill me? Luna slipped out of Carla's arms and approached Isabella. Can I sit next to you? Isabella nodded and Luna climbed into the chair beside her. You know, Miss Isabella, I was also scared to trust people after hearing so many bad things. But my mom taught me that there are good people and bad people in the world. How do you know the difference? Isabella asked, looking at the child who seemed to have more wisdom than many adults. Luna thought for a moment. Good people protect kids. Bad people hurt them. Mr. Miller was always nice to me when I came to work with my mom. He'd ask if I was okay, give me candy, and he never yelled at me. Isabella looked at Edward with tear-filled eyes. You did that? Edward blushed slightly. Yes. Luna was always so polite and quiet. She seemed like a very special child. See, Luna said, gently touching Isabella's arm. He took care of me even though he wasn't my dad. Now he can take care of you as your real dad. Carla watched the interaction with a heavy heart. Her 7-year-old daughter was consoling an 18-year-old who had just gone through the trauma of discovering her mother was a murderer. Luna's emotional maturity was both admirable and heartbreaking. D.A. Fields received more information over the phone. Marcus Perry was found dead in his apartment. Apparent suicide, but there are signs it may have been forced. Edward felt a chill run down his spine. She's eliminating witnesses, even from prison. How can she be eliminating people if she's in jail? Isabella asked, a new wave of fear in her eyes. Luna shook her head sadly. In the recordings, she talked about other people who helped her. It wasn't just Richard and the car guy. Henry was taking notes frantically. Luna, do you remember the names of these other people? Luna closed her eyes, concentrating. There was a woman she called Dr. Sylvia. She works at a hospital and helped make it look like people died of natural causes. D.A. Fields' eyes widened. A doctor involved? That explains how she managed to kill people without raising suspicion. And there was a man she called the captain, Luna continued. He wasn't a real police officer, but she said he had contacts in the police force who helped close cases without a proper investigation. The courtroom fell silent. The sheer scale of Patricia's criminal network was becoming clear. This wasn't just one woman murdering husbands for money. It was an entire organization facilitating homicides across the city. Edward sat down heavily. My God! How many people did she kill? How many families were destroyed? Isabella began to cry again. I carry the DNA of a monster. How am I supposed to live knowing I'm the daughter of someone capable of such evil? Luna turned to Isabella with determination. Miss Isabella, you are not like her. You didn't even know she existed, and you're already a good person. How can you be sure? Isabella sobbed. Because when she pointed the gun at me over the phone, when she got mad at me, you tried to protect me even though you didn't know me. I heard you telling her to leave me alone. Isabella vaguely remembered protesting when Patricia had yelled at the child on the phone, but she hadn't realized Luna had interpreted it as protection. Carla came over and gently touched Isabella's shoulder. Honey, Luna is right. You have a good heart. Genes don't determine who you are. Your choices do. Edward nodded. Isabella, I lived with Patricia for 15 years without knowing who she really was. That doesn't make me a monster by association. And you, who were raised far away from her by loving parents, are so much more than just her biological daughter. D.A. Fields interrupted the moment with more urgent news. We just received information that Dr. Sylvia Martin, head of the ER at St. Vincent's Hospital, was found dead in her office. Same situation, apparent suicide with signs of coercion. Luna squeezed Isabella's hand. They're killing all the people who know the secrets. Henry stood up. That means anyone who can testify against Patricia is in danger, including... He stopped, looking directly at Luna. Carla felt panic rise in her chest. No, Luna is just a child. They wouldn't dare... Mom, Luna said calmly, bad people don't care if you're a kid or a grown-up. They only care about protecting their secrets. Judge Reynolds made an immediate decision. I want 24-hour police protection for Luna, Carla, Isabella, and Edward, and I want this investigation expanded immediately. Edward looked at Luna with a mix of admiration and terror. Luna, you've exposed an entire criminal network. You're the most important witness they have. Luna nodded, understanding the gravity of the situation. Mr. Miller, does this mean we're all going to stay together now, to protect each other? Edward looked at Carla, then at Isabella, then back at Luna. If you want to, yes, we can be a real family, a family that protects each other. Isabella wiped her tears. I don't know how to be part of a family. My adoptive parents were good, but they died when I was still learning how to be an adult. And now, finding out about her. You'll learn, Luna said with conviction. And we'll teach you. Families take care of each other. That's what families do. Carla smiled through her own tears. Luna's right. We'll take care of each other. We'll be a chosen family, not a family of blood. D.A. Fields received another urgent call. After a few minutes of tense conversation, he hung up with a grave expression. There are disturbing developments. The captain Luna mentioned has been identified as Captain Roger Santos, retired from the state police. He controlled a corruption ring within several precincts. Edward felt sick again. They corrupted criminal investigations? For years, cases of suspicious deaths that were closed without proper investigation, evidence that disappeared, witnesses who changed their testimony or simply vanished. Luna looked around the room with that unsettling seriousness. So where is that man now? D.A. Fields hesitated before answering. He was also found dead this morning. Same pattern as the others. Isabella grabbed Edward's arm. They're killing everyone who can tell the truth about her. Not everyone, Luna said, looking directly at Isabella. They couldn't kill me, and they won't kill you either, because now we're together. Edward hugged both Isabella and Luna. Luna's right. They underestimated a 7-year-old once. They won't underestimate a whole family that protects each other. Carla joined the hug, and for the first time since the nightmare began, Isabella felt that maybe there was hope for the future, But D.A. Fields received one more call and his expression grew even darker. There's a bigger problem. Patricia managed to post bail again. A different lawyer showed up with paperwork no one knows where it came from. Edward stood up abruptly. What do you mean? She was being held without bail. Apparently the corruption runs even deeper than we imagined. Someone with a lot of power is protecting Patricia. Luna looked at all the adults around her and asked a question that chilled everyone to the bone. If she's out again, does that mean she's coming for us? Before anyone could answer, the lights in the courtroom went out, plunging them all into complete darkness. The courtroom plunged into complete darkness, and for a terrifying moment, everyone feared the worst. Isabella gripped Edward's arm tightly, while Carla pulled Luna close. The silence was deafening, broken only by the heavy breathing of panicked people. "Everyone, stay calm," Judge Reynolds said, his voice cutting through the darkness. "It's likely just a power failure in the building." As if to confirm his words, emergency lights began to flicker on, casting a ghostly glow but providing enough light for everyone to see each other. D.A. Fields was already on the phone with courthouse security. "Main transformer blew," he reported after a few minutes. "The whole block is out. It's not a targeted attack." The relief was palpable, but the tension remained. The thought of Patricia being free again kept everyone on constant alert. It was at that moment that the courtroom doors opened, and an unexpected figure entered. A man in his 60s, well-dressed, with graying hair and a distinguished bearing. Edward recognized the face immediately, even in the dim emergency lighting. "Judge August Mendez," Edward murmured. Stunned, Isabella's eyes widened. "Mendez? That's my father's last name." The man approached slowly, his hands visible and empty, showing he meant no harm. "Yes, Isabella. I am August Mendez, your father Anthony's brother." D.A. Fields stood up, alert. "Sir, how did you get into the building during a blackout?" "I am a retired Superior Court judge," August answered calmly. "I've had access to this building for 30 years. And I came here because I have something terrible to confess." Luna hid behind Carla but kept her eyes fixed on the man. There was something in his posture she recognized, not the predatory arrogance of Patricia, but the weight of someone carrying deep guilt. Edward frowned. "Judge Mendez, what are you doing here?" August addressed Isabella directly, who shrank back in her chair. "My dear niece, I need to ask for your forgiveness, and I need to tell you the truth about your mother and about myself." Judge Reynolds gestured for August to approach the center of the room. "Continue, Judge Mendez." The man took a deep breath, as if gathering courage for something he had planned for a long time. "I knew about Patricia. I knew about her crimes, and for years I protected her." The silence that followed was deafening. Edward felt as if he'd been punched in the gut. You knew?" "When my brother Anthony died, I suspected Patricia had poisoned him," August continued, his voice trembling. "But I only had circumstantial evidence, and Patricia was smart. She came to me after the funeral and made me a proposition." Henry stood up. "What kind of proposition?" "She had discovered I had a gambling problem. I owed a lot of money to dangerous people. Patricia offered to pay my debts and give me a monthly allowance in exchange for legal protection." Isabella looked at her uncle with growing horror in her eyes. You helped her cover up that she murdered my father." August began to cry. "Yes, and I have hated myself for it every day for the last 5 years. When she married Edward, I knew it was only a matter of time before she tried to kill him too, but I was too afraid to speak up." D.A. Fields was taking notes. "And today? Why did you decide to speak now?" "Because when I heard she had tried to kill a child," August looked directly at Luna, "I couldn't live with myself anymore. There's a difference between being a coward in the face of crimes against adults and being a coward in the face of crimes against an innocent child." Luna stepped out from behind her mother and walked toward August. "Were you the one who helped her get out of jail today?" August nodded, ashamed. "I used my old contacts to get her bail. She told me she had one last job to do before disappearing forever." Edward felt a surge of panic. "What last job?" "To eliminate all the witnesses against her, including—" August looked at Luna. the child who recorded her conversations. Carla grabbed Luna protectively, but Luna remained calm. Where is she now? I don't know, August answered honestly. After I arranged the bail, she vanished, but I brought something that might help find her. August pulled a thick envelope from his jacket. For all these years, I secretly documented everything I knew about Patricia's crimes. Names, dates, methods, victims. It's all here. D.A. Fields took the envelope and began to examine its contents. My God, there are at least 15 victims documented here. Isabella stood up, trembling with rage. 15 people. She killed 15 people and you knew. I know there's no forgiveness for what I did, August said, tears streaming down his face. But when I saw this brave child, he looked at Luna, exposing the whole truth that I was too cowardly to tell, I knew I had to do the right thing. Luna moved even closer to August. Sir, can you help put her away for good now? Yes, August said with determination. I know where she hides money. I know how she operates. I know who's still helping her. With this information, she will never be able to hurt anyone again. Edward looked at August with a mixture of anger and relief. Why did you wait so long to do this? Because I am a coward, August replied simply. But this child showed me that even someone small and powerless can make a difference when they have courage. Henry was examining the documents. Ed, with this evidence, we can not only ensure Patricia is convicted, but also dismantle the entire corrupt network that protected her. D.A. Fields was coordinating with police authorities on his phone. With Judge Mendez's testimony and evidence, we have warrants to arrest everyone involved. Luna gently touched August's hand. Sir, doing the right thing even when you're scared is what makes someone brave. August knelt to the girl's level. Luna, you are the bravest person I have ever met. A 7-year-old had more integrity than a 60-year-old judge. Isabella approached slowly. Uncle August, I don't know if I can forgive you for what you did, but thank you for finally telling the truth. I don't expect forgiveness, August replied, but I hope I can spend the rest of my life trying to repair the harm I've caused. D.A. Fields received an important call. They found Patricia. She was trying to flee the country using fake documents. She's in custody again, this time in a federal supermax prison. The relief that washed over the courtroom was immense. Edward hugged Isabella, who finally allowed herself to cry tears of relief instead of terror. Is it over? Isabella asked. Is it really over? It's over, Judge Reynolds confirmed. With Judge Mendez's testimony and all the evidence, Patricia Miller will face trial for multiple homicides. She will never be a threat again. Luna turned to her new family, Edward, Isabella, and Carla. Can we be happy now? Edward knelt and hugged Luna. Now we can be happy, my little hero. 6 months later, the house Edward had bought in a quiet suburban neighborhood was filled with life and laughter. It was a Saturday morning, and the family was gathered in the kitchen for the traditional breakfast that had become their favorite routine. Isabella, who had transferred her pre-med studies to a local university, was helping Carla make pancakes. Her smile, once rare and forced, was now genuine and frequent. Therapy had helped immensely, but the unconditional love of her new family had been the true medicine for the wounds in her soul. Luna, stop stealing bits of batter, Isabella laughed, feigning sternness as Luna dipped her finger into the bowl. I'm quality testing to make sure it's good, Luna replied, with the comical seriousness that had become her trademark. Edward watched the scene from the table, a forgotten newspaper in front of him. The headlines still occasionally mentioned the case that had shocked the city. Patricia had been sentenced to life in prison, and 16 others involved in the corruption ring had also been jailed. Judge August was serving a reduced sentence in exchange for his full cooperation and had become an advocate for the rights of victims of organized crime. He wrote frequent letters to Isabella, who sometimes replied. Forgiveness was a long process, but they were working on it. Dad, Isabella said, and Edward still got emotional every time she called him that, are you coming to Luna's recital at school next week? I wouldn't miss it for the world, Edward replied. Our little hero singing in the school choir. It's the event of the year. Luna ran to Edward and climbed onto his lap. Dad, do you think Grandpa Jack is proud of me up in heaven? Edward kissed the top of Luna's head. "I'm sure he is, honey. You used his gift to save people. That's exactly what he would have wanted." Carla joined the family at the table, her hands no longer calloused from heavy labor. Edward had insisted she no longer needed to work as a cleaner, but Carla had chosen to open a small cleaning business, employing other women in difficult situations. "You know," Carla said, looking around the table at her chosen family, "sometimes bad things happen to lead us to very good things." Luna nodded wisely. "Mom, Grandpa Jack used to say that angels sometimes use ordinary people to do their work." Isabella smiled. "Then you're our angel, Luna." Luna shook her head. "No, I'm just Luna. But all of us together, we're a family of angels." Edward looked at his 3 girls, Luna, his 7-year-old hero, Isabella, his daughter of the heart, and Carla, who had become so much more to him than just Luna's mother, and knew that despite all the pain and trauma they had endured, they had found something rare and precious. They had found a family formed not by blood or circumstance, but by love, courage, and the conscious decision to care for one another, and in a house full of laughter, where a 7-year-old could finally be just a child, where an 18-year-old could heal her wounds surrounded by love, where a hard-working mother could finally rest, and where a man had learned that true wealth wasn't measured in money but in moments like this. They lived happily ever after, not because fairy tales are real, but because sometimes, when the right people find each other and decide to fight for one another, they can create their own version of a happy ending. And Luna, who had started as an invisible child watching adults commit evil deeds, was now the beloved center of a family she herself had helped create with her extraordinary courage. Because sometimes the most unlikely heroes are the ones no one expects, and sometimes the strongest families are the ones who choose to be together, not the ones who are forced to be.